Filmspotting is presented by Regal Unlimited, the all-you-can-watch movie subscription pass that pays for itself in just 2 visits. Sign up now in the Regal app or at the link in the show description and use code FILMSPOT25, that's FILMSPOT25, to receive your discount. This episode of Filmspotting is sponsored by Soundstripe. Soundstripe has the best royalty-free music for all of your content. With over 10,000 songs and sound effects, curated playlists, and a new AI song editing feature, it's fast and easy to find and edit any track for your project. Get started with a free Soundstripe account at soundstripe.com/filmspotting and save 10% with code FILMSPOTTING10. That's soundstripe.com/filmspotting and code FILMSPOTTING10.
What kind of a show are you guys putting on here today?
You're not interested in art?
No.
Now look, we're going to do this thing. We're going to have a conversation.
From Chicago, this is Filmspotting, celebrating our 20th year. I'm Adam Kempenaar.
And I'm Josh Larson.
Superman. He's not a man. He's an it. He's somehow become the focal point of the entire world's conversation. I will not accept that.
Josh, will at least one of us get to play the superhero, or will we both be villains as we review James Gunn's Superman?
Well, I don't know about you, Adam, but I did just shave my head.
Looking forward to this conversation, that review, and our top 5 Superman movie moments.
Easy, miss. I've got you.
You've got me. Who's got you?
Ahead on Filmspotting.
I can't believe it. I just cannot believe it. He got her.
Welcome to Filmspotting. As far as movie superheroes go, Josh, we were the Superman 78 generation, born about right in between Batman 67 and Burton's 89 Batman.
That's right. Do you think this might come up in our top 5, but do you think you saw 78 Superman in the theater?
No, definitely didn't.
I probably didn't either.
Yeah, I would have seen it on TV or maybe early HBO in the 80s.
Yeah, I might have seen Superman 2 in the theater, though. Might have been able to pull that off.
I think that's true for me as well. Later in the show, our top 5 Superman movie moments that will hopefully not lean too heavily on Margot Kidder's Lois. We're not making any promises, plus Massacre Theatre and more. But first, James Gunn's Superman, which is currently in theaters. Gunn is the super auteur behind the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy and 2021 Suicide Squad, who has been tasked with resurrecting not just one, but a universe of superheroes. His new Superman is the first of the rebranded DCU. So long, and thanks for all the Aquaman DCEU. Let's check in at the Daily Planet, shall we?
22 people in the hospital, over 20 million in property damage. It does make you wonder.
Wonder what?
As great as he is, maybe Superman didn't completely think through the ramifications of the Bravia thing.
Well, if this guy is even from Bravia.
What do you mean? His name is the Hammer of Bravia.
Yeah, I doubt his parents named him that, Jimmy. We have no clue what his actual goal was here.
I think it's pretty obvious the goal was kicking Superman's ass.
He didn't completely kick Superman's ass.
Pretty thoroughly, Clark.
When we review a movie here on the show, Adam, sometimes we talk about the notion of being in good hands. It's this understanding that the filmmakers are in command of their story and how to tell it, and that we can feel that assurance as viewers. It can go the other way too, of course, the uneasy sense that the hands are unsteady or maybe even misguided. Let's apply this notion to the new Superman, written and directed by James Gunn, with David Cornsweet as the Man of Steel, Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, and Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. We know this story well. So the real question going in was related to how it was going to be told. How did they do, Adam? If you're a fan of the film, was there a moment where you had that good hands feeling? The sense that Gunn and his collaborators knew what they were doing, particularly with this iconic pop culture property? Or maybe you're not among the 83% of critics and 93% of audience members over at Rotten Tomatoes who did approve of the film. If not, can you point to a moment when this Superman's hands felt unsteady?
I'm sad to report that I think I'm among the 17% with one Josh Larson. I'm still searching.
Are you kidding me? Wow.
No,
okay.
No, I'm going to be the villain too. I'm still searching for that clarifying moment to some extent because my experience with this movie would best be described as wobbly right from the beginning. There's an opening crawl setting up the story, relying on repetition with the number 3. And look, as an occasional writer myself, I love me some repetition. It goes from 3 centuries ago, then to, I think, 3 decades, eventually down to 3 minutes. I guess I forgot how many possible units of time there were. I was half expecting it to continue down to 3 milliseconds. It felt so interminable. But at 3 minutes, we hear that Superman has lost his first ever battle. And my ears perked up. And then Superman falls to the ice with a booming thud, and my eyes opened a little wider. Wait, Superman can lose? And soon we see that there's a Lex Luthor who is smart enough and diabolical enough to beat him. I'm intrigued. Not long after that, we get this Superman's version of the Lois Lane interviewing Superman scene that we got in Superman 78, right? And later, I saw an Instagram video with Brosnahan and Corenswet, and they talked about how they approached it, maybe Gunn as well. They approached it as a stage play. And, I wouldn't have pegged Gunn for that, but it works. She's interrogating him about his decision to get involved in world affairs. The subtext of that scene, though, Josh, is we're in a relationship, but I don't really know who you are. And I'm not sure you're being totally honest with me or yourself. I really like the scene because it's a completely different take on the Lois Superman relationship. It's a different take on the dynamic of that interview from 78, on the substance of the interview, in large part because this is a very different Superman than Reeves, who wasn't just perfectly gallant and respectful and charming and in control. He was perfect in every way, the Superman. Whereas Corenswet's Superman is supremely mortal. He isn't wearing the suit, but he is Superman in that scene, and he's flawed. He's completely disarmed rather than being disarming. This Superman might actually be more gallant and respectful and charming and in control in the scenes where he's pretending to be Clark Kent. Then you've got his adversaries referring to him as the Kryptonian or the alien, dehumanizing him the way illegals are being dehumanized right now in our country, establishing some real world relevance. 20 to 30 minutes in, I mostly thought, maybe Gunn has got it. And by the end, I mostly thought he didn't have it, which we will discuss. But first, I want to know what you thought.
Yeah, as you alluded to, you do already know I got a chance to see this early. And so you do already know that I had a very negative reaction to this movie. And I want to work my way through that here because honestly, I feel like I've missed out. I feel on the outs. Not only is it getting a good reception, that's fine. I can deal with being against the grain, but people have found this to be rousing and ennobling. And many critics have written about how this is I didn't know I needed this movie. And so I am saying what I'm about to say, even though I really don't want to. I don't want to squash anyone else's fun. And I do see a bit of what they're talking about there. It is in the performance that you were just describing. This is a very interesting take on Superman that, despite those variations you mentioned, which I'd agree with, I think still the character, this movie wants to believe in this character's initial goodness, heroic sense of justice and what is right and wrong, his kindness. I think that's what those people who have really gone for the movie respond to, and it's there. But to me, it was only there in Corenswet's performance and the depiction of Superman, and not only lacking elsewhere, but actively acted against elsewhere. And to go back to, the prompt I offered is I thought I'm going to look back at my notes. I had a ton of notes on this movie and see if I could detect like where things went wrong for me. And really just to reinforce to myself that I didn't come into this movie wanting to go after it at all. And sure enough, looking at my notes, there's nothing negative really for the first number of pages. There's some dialogue I jotted down, which I usually do when I'm taking notes, some appreciation for Krypto, the super dog. I did have a few complaints about the glaring sun in nearly every shot, as if Gunn wants to blot out that dreary DCEU that no one enjoyed. But eventually I did see this phrase jotted down. Selfie girl is lame. And I realized in looking back why that stood out to me. And this probably, I wrote down one of the first shots of Sarah Sampaio as Eve, Lex Luthor's image-obsessed girlfriend. You know, little did I know after this shot of her taking a selfie during the battle with Superman that we were going to get so many bits about her doing this at silly times or saying dumb things or being clingy. But even with that first appearance, something inside me just said, uh-oh. That it's where I started to doubt the hands that I was feeling positive about, as you were, with that interesting opening in the middle of the narrative and all these things that were intriguing me. And I think it was just this instinct to go for the easy, often mean jokes that I recognized. That's a cheapness that has not worked for me in Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I found them, and again, this is where I'm against the tide here. I found those to be full of cheap violence for humor's sake, cheap emotional manipulation that's often tied to endangering animals. I've made my peace with the fact that maybe the Guardians sensibility is just not for me. Okay. This isn't something I carry around with me. I honestly forgot that Gunn had directed Volume 3 of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Well, they kicked him off at one point, but he got
maybe that's why
back.
I was confused. Yeah. So at any rate, the problem this time, Adam, is that this sensibility that I sensed coming from Guardians is not the sensibility for Superman, especially a Superman like this one that wants to double down on the character's care and kindness. And as I said, with Corin Sweat, who I think is quite good here, we get a Superman who is, in addition to those things you described, I think quite corny and very earnest. But his movie, to me, so often is delighting in being callous and cruel. And there is just a disconnect there that audiences seem to be able to get past. But for me, I couldn't. It kept piling on until this was a really, really rough watch for me. And I can talk a little bit more as we get into it about where I saw those distinctions. But overall, that's what didn't work for me when it came to Gunn's Superman.
Yeah. Listeners, especially obviously those who really like this movie, can completely discount our points of view if they want, more than they might usually, because you said it. And I had the same thought. James Gunn's sensibility just doesn't seem to mesh very well with ours. I think you've been a little bit harder on some of his films, including Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But I look back at my ratings of his films and thought about our conversations, and I've never really hated a James Gunn film, but I've never come close to really liking a James Gunn film either. And here I am with Superman, kind of right in the middle, but definitely leaning more towards the negative. And one trap I definitely don't want to fall into, because I definitely don't like it when audience members do this with critics, which is you try to assign some kind of motivation to why a critic feels a certain way. But I almost do wonder, Josh, because I feel it myself. I almost do wonder if some critics, it's just wishful thinking, or on some level, there's just this element of wanting so badly, especially for me, not enjoying something like Jurassic Park or Jurassic World Rebirth. You want to go into Superman, and as someone who loved Superman, and we're going to get to our Superman moments, and it's going to be filled, it's just going to be overloaded with nostalgia. I promise you, not only did I not go into this movie wanting to dislike it, I wanted to love it. So I came in with wishful thinking. And yet, to use your word, I was never roused, even in its clearest attempts to be rousing. And I was certainly never moved, even in its clearest attempts to be moving. And I did see it similarly to you, Josh. And I'm going to use some of the same words maybe, and words that are synonyms, perhaps, though the experience of watching the film may be different, or how it worked on us may be different. But like you, I never could quite reconcile, and this is a problem I've had with Gunn's work as well overall, I never could quite reconcile Gunn's glibness and goofiness with his sadistic streak. That's what you're referring to as the meanness?
Yeah.
Even just his attempts to be serious, I could never quite reconcile with the glibness and the goofiness. And it is things like, you said it, the lameness of the recurring bit of Selfie Girl, right? It's the Daily Planet itself and every cast member within the Daily Planet, who felt to me, Josh, like they probably had bigger parts on the page and then somehow just ended up being afterthoughts in the movie. Like Wendell Pierce, why did he get cast in this film? Beck Bennett is essentially playing a version of the Steve Carell character from Anchorman. He is a cartoon, like a cartoon sports writer or something. And I like Beck Bennett from Saturday Night Live.
You're making a good point. He's out of place with what the other characters are doing.
He's even out of place compared to them. But I don't understand why any of them are in this film or what they're doing in this film. And you do have this wonderful earnestness to Superman. The first word out of his mouth, I believe, in this film is golly.
Yes.
And I can appreciate that.
I was so in when I saw that.
I know. And then we take all of this silliness, even including the fact that this Superman doesn't just save every single human being who's in any kind of peril whatsoever. He rescues a squirrel.
Right.
That's where Gunn's going with this. Superman's even going to save the life of a squirrel who's about to get crushed. But then we're also going to have Russian roulette and have
come on.
Persons of color get killed, and then
Russian
there's
roulette
as a
joke too, though, Adam.
Joke.
It's not just that it's in there; it's that it's there for a comic punchline.
It sort of feels that way, but then he's going to want a payoff, an emotional payoff late in the film when there's going to be a reference to him, and it feels totally unearned and actually, again, I'll say maybe a little bit sadistic there. And everything about the sequence that follows that, where I think we can say, without getting too heavily into any kind of spoilers, everything that follows in that world, which is truly its own universe, this proto-universe, Josh, where you're using not just that person of color as a prop, but you're using this baby alien as a prop.
Seriously.
It's a baby. It's still a baby. And the movie wants you to regard it as a baby and use it and think of it as something that you're trying to protect as precious. And everything about it still feels at the same time like a cartoon. And so for me, it's not so much like it's a moral or ethical thing. It's more that it makes it so tonally and just dramatically kind of disconnected.
Yeah, inconsistent.
That's the lack of consistency or the thing that I couldn't reconcile. And if I'm constantly trying to reconcile that throughout the film, then I'm having a tough time getting on board with the film dramatically and narratively. I'm constantly just at conflict with myself and the movie.
I completely agree with you on all those points. And again, defenders of the movie might be saying, come on, these are throwaway scenes. And in a sense they are, but they're building a framework that, again, is antithetical to the framework of kindness that this movie is supposedly about. And I'm just going to add some more that are even more throwaways. But the joke about, in the Fortress of Solitude, Superman has these robot assistants who we meet in a number of scenes and come to have some care for as characters. Mm-hmm. There's a throwaway, I think it's meant to be funny, after the Fortress of Solitude has been, I'll go around spoilers, but basically invaded. Mm-hmm. And there's a shot of one of these robots like repeatedly stabbing itself in the head. And maybe that's not meant to be funny. Maybe I'm misreading it. The point is, I should not be confused. I should not in that moment know, am I supposed to feel bad for, I think number 4 it is, because there's a conversation about how they want names even. Like, am I supposed to feel bad here? Am I supposed to be laughing? Is this slapstick? And I don't know, because I don't know. I rarely know what is sincere in a movie by James Gunn. And I don't want to accuse, when I wrote about this, I made, some reference about, I wonder how he feels about pets. I wish I hadn't written that. It was facetious. It's a parenthetical aside. I don't really think that this is someone who doesn't care about animals. And sure enough, reading I think it was in the New York Times, an interesting piece about Crypto, the CGI dog, and it's based on Gunn's, own rescue dog. So I'm not meaning to be personal on that, but it's the inconsistency in tone that does make you wonder just based on what you're seeing on the screen. Let's stick with Crypto, and I'll give you another example. In this black site prison world where we spend way too much time.
Yes.
Crypto has been kidnapped and Lex Luthor has forced him to run on a treadmill. Okay.
Yeah. Chasing imaginary squirrels.
This is it, Adam. This is it. Okay. If you want to use crypto as, to move our emotions and to say, no, not crypto. Look what Lex Luthor is making him do. This is awful. This is cruel. It's not nice to do this to animals. Why does Gunn also include the punchline of the squirrel gag? It's separated. We see crypto first, and then it's like a visual punchline that he's chasing squirrels. These like a screen projection of squirrels. The squirrels and dogs joke is like, from Up and everywhere else is so common. And so this is a comic beat. And so why are we including both? I don't know that, like you, I'm trying to make a moral equation with either choice, but why are we trying to do both? Why are we trying to rend our heart over crypto's predicament and then make us laugh at what's happening to him at the same time? To me, I can't reconcile those. And just one more thing, because I want to go back to this idea that this is all supposed to stand apart from Superman. He is the beacon of kindness. Of course, this world around him is going to be awful. There's even some hypocritical elements here, because that sequence you were referencing where he's battling this ginormous kaiju and, is trying to save the squirrel, I think there, also trying to save a dog. There's another animal from being squashed by this kaiju's foot. The whole point of that sequence is that he's arguing with the Justice Gang about how he doesn't want to harm this kaiju. He wants to capture it,
like study it or something,
and study it, and we'll bring it to like a zoo somewhere. And he keeps reprimanding them for being too violent against this kaiju. I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, there's a scene of Superman and Lois having a conversation in a high-rise building. You can see outside the window, and behind them, the Justice Gang is in a battle with like a giant space squid, right? And they're hammering the thing, they're lasering the thing, whatever they do. They're screaming at it. Hawkgirl does a lot of screaming. They're screaming at this space squid. And I don't know what happened to Superman's concern, because Lois points it out and he's just like, they got this. It's a joke. It's a gag. The Superman we're supposed to be rooting for just gave a speech about caring for these interstellar creatures. Again, this is a minor thing. It's a throwaway scene. But you add all of these on top of each other, Adam, and I kept sinking lower and lower in my seat.
Now, let me push back just slightly on one aspect of this with regard to the meanness. And that is the Lex Luthor that we get here is obviously very clearly intended to be antithetical to the Superman that we get. And we've already painted the picture of this Superman, the guy who says golly and saves the squirrels, and for the most part seems to be interested in just wanting to preserve life and cares about every living creature, including, I'll throw one other little touch I like in here that I feel like is a deliberate or intentional moment in the screenplay. Remember when he goes to the Fortress of Solitude after he's been beaten in that opening sequence, and the robot, I think it's number 4 again, does something to help him, and he says, thank you. And the robot says, there's no need to thank me. I can't feel gratitude or feel whatever emotion he should feel in that moment. And I think that Superman probably knows that about the robot, but he can't help but thank him anyway. Right? That's this Superman. That's what he's made of. This Luthor, and this is ultimately something I like about the movie, I think is a strength about the movie, and I alluded to this earlier. This Lex Luthor is someone who is defined by his meanness in contrast to the kindness of Superman. So you mentioned the joke, potentially, of chasing the squirrel. I see that a little bit more. I see it less as a joke, and I see it more about Lex Luthor being someone who, it's not a matter for him of just wanting to sort of physically hurt the dog, Crypto, or do anything else to him. He wants to traumatize that dog. He wants to hurt and traumatize everybody who is an enemy. of him. And I guess I appreciate that the movie gave us a Luthor who is distinct in that way from others. Look, I love Gene Hackman, of course, right? But if you're going to find new spins on these characters in the mythology, that was a Gene Hackman who was, in his own way, an evil genius. And he was someone who certainly caused trouble and almost destroyed parts of the world. I'm not saying he didn't, but compared to this Lex Luthor, I mean, he seems like a saint. This Luthor is someone who comes very close to doing the unthinkable and actually destroying Superman at multiple points in this film. And he relishes every moment of it. He has no qualms whatsoever about hurting anybody who gets in his way. And you don't ever really feel that about someone like Hackman's Luthor.
Yeah, this is a sadistic villain. Absolutely understand that. I think, again, the crypto scene on the treadmill, I think, is trying to have it both ways. Emphasize that is definitely a part of it, but also getting us to laugh at the squirrels. I don't mean to say that the movie is on the side of this Lex Luthor or even has the spirit of this Lex Luthor. No, but I mean, like, I know that might be what it sounds like. It's clearly able to make a distinction there. But you know what, Adam? There's a key scene here that I think muddies the waters even on this point. And this is when Lois Lane has teamed up with one of the Justice Gang, Mr. Terrific, who I think is quite good, Eddie Gathegi, playing a character I was unfamiliar with, Mr. Terrific. Yeah. Great character.
He's a standout, for sure.
A standout for sure. I think Brosnahan is really good as Lois Lane as well. I wish she and Cornsweet had more scenes together. Maybe we'll set that aside and come back to it. But for this scene with Lois and Mr. Terrific, they're basically facing off against a squadron of mercenaries, okay? So they're, outnumbered. It's tense. Mr. Terrific is able to create these T-spheres, they're called. So he essentially builds this bubble around Lois where she's protected, and then he goes on the attack, unleashing other T-spheres or projectiles, things that start taking out all these mercenaries and the scientists who are working alongside the mercenaries. Okay?
This is a sequence everybody seems to love, by the way. Of course.
Because Gunn is amping up the filmmaking. The camera stays in the sphere with Lois, and it's one of these single takes, which is swerving, following the action as she looks. And I would say it's impressive, except that he also pulls out this trick about 15 times in the movie, sometimes even in conversation scenes. And, at what point does a bravura single take no longer become bravura if you're using it this often? Put that aside. To the point here, the experience we have, the experience that Lois has, is she's in her own movie. It's like she's watching her own IMAX movie, and it is putting a safety lens against the violence that is happening. The bubble pops, and all she can say is like, wow, or something like we're expected to. Oh, let me add, Gunn also, loves putting in pop songs. So we get this 5 years time playing from Noah and the Whale. I'm not going to try to sing it to you, but it's very exciting, very poppy, adds to the excitement of this moment. And all I can look at is, this field of bodies in front of us. Again, I understand it's a superhero movie. It's not real. I understand that people die in them. To me, it is the attitude about the dying. This is where things get fuzzy. This is not Lex Luthor. This is one of the heroes. We have already been told about how much Superman values life. I'm not saying Mr. Terrific can't kill people. What I'm saying is
they don't feel the same. They've made that clear. But
why does it have to be presented as the entertaining high point of the film? That is the disconnect.
And why does she seem to love it? Why does she find it entertaining?
Because we're supposed to, and we're in the bubble with her. I think that may have been the moment where I was pretty much completely out.
I'm with you. I had a similar reaction to it where I loved the song. I understood why many people might find this exhilarating, and yet I was conflicted the entire time I was watching it, and I kind of just wanted to get back to Superman. I wanted to get back to the narrative. I wanted to get back to that character the entire time. And as good as Brosnahan is, she's clearly a really talented actress. I wanted more scenes. I'm not saying I wanted scenes exactly like the one in the apartment, but I wanted more scenes where I actually got a sense of her character and her agency. And that may seem like a weird word to use because she drives so much of the action in the second half of the film. But there again, Josh, I didn't buy a lot of it. There is so much made about entering this proto-universe, which is, we're told, incredibly dangerous. And the fact that she just walks into this universe, right? I know that this here is one of those things you may just have to suspend disbelief on. It's not something I'm bringing up because she's a woman. It's something I'm bringing up because she's a human being. She's not a superhero. And the fact that the movie needs her to enter that space, and then when you really think about it, she does not actually do much of anything in the second half of this film. Even after she goes into that universe, she's actually not very involved because she can't be. And as all the action is occurring, she's kind of flying around and doing some journalistic things, but she's not really involved in the action. I feel like she's a pretty hollow character as well. Not as hollow as the other members or the other employees of the Daily Planet, but more hollow than I would have liked. And that brings me as well, Josh, to something about Corin Sweat's Superman that I also struggle with, even though I did overall really like his performance. And there were aspects of his Superman that we've spoken to that I think really work and that challenge, if you will, the conventional mythology of Superman in interesting ways. He's a little slow, right? And I think I'm okay with that. But here's the part I couldn't really forgive. In that interview scene, the thing she keeps hammering him on is that, and the thing the world, and that Lex is trying to use against him, the thing the world is questioning is he's in a bunch of trouble because he's stopped a war. He's stopped another country, a very, here again, real world parallels, right? Like Russia invading Ukraine, these two fictional countries, one just deciding it's going to invade. And his answer, because again, he's all about saving human life, the sanctity of human life, his only answer is really, but people were going to die. So I had no choice. People were going to die. I had to step in and stop it. That's who I am. That's what I do. But the notion that this guy, who also is a reporter for the Daily Planet, has never thought about, seems to have never thought about, what is Superman's place in the world? I'm not saying like Man of Steel or some of these other films, we needed to have trials. We needed to put him on trial and have these lengthy discussions about what Superman's political motivations should be or what's right and wrong along those lines. But the fact that it seems as if, Josh, he's never thought about whether or not it really is okay that he gets involved in these affairs, that he doesn't have conversations with our political leaders before he goes and does these kinds of things. It does seem like a bit of a screenplay miss to me.
I get it. It's to me, it's embedded in the conception of the character, which is, to a nicer way to put it, is maybe naive or maybe impulsive in his niceness. Above all that, maybe possibly. So yeah, I think you're right to point it out, but it didn't bother me quite as much. I did want to go back once more, just quickly, as you were describing Lois stuck in this. I don't think I wrote this down. Were you saying a proto world, this in between
proto universe? Isn't that what it's called?
Something like that. Yeah. Sounds. We may be in trouble getting that wrong, but this dark world, the reason it doesn't resonate, like what is going to happen to her here, why it doesn't matter, is because nothing matters, because this is another CGI goop world.
Oh, that's the thing. It is a hot mess.
And I don't want to keep piling on this movie, but I also, I had other problems than the mean streak. And one is that this thing looks pretty bad, I thought. We'll get to our Superman moments, but I had a chance, obviously, to watch many scenes from 1978 Superman, which looks so much better in terms of special effects, different tools, of course. But then what we get here, there is that entire sequence in that world is you don't know what is up or down, or what happens if someone falls off this, or if they, there's like a goop river that, maybe that's bad
the
to fall in.
Proton River, which is why I've been getting it wrong. It's called a pocket universe.
Pocket universe that has a proton river that leads to a black hole that we all know none of it exists because it doesn't look like it does for a second.
No stakes at all to any of it because none of it matters. None of it feels remotely real, and you don't know what's going on anyway.
And this happens later too when a rift, we'll leave it.
Yeah.
But the climactic sequence, let's just say visually, is just as junky.
Yeah.
And you know what? Here's a point, Adam, where I sat up in my seat because I thought, there's a climactic battle where we're punching and bludgeoning and flying and, not all that different from the Snyder stuff, quite frankly. And then Superman and the person he's fighting land in a baseball field. And I saw that turf moved. Like it might have been grass or turf. It was something that either was really well done with CGI, or they actually were on physical material. And I shot to attention because I thought, this is going to be good. I can actually tell where they are, what's around them, and how it affects the fight. And, they don't stay there too long. Obviously, they head back into the dark closet.
There is also the fact that I was praising how I loved that, and I like Holt's performance. I loved how they made Lex so ruthless, so repugnant, so evil. And then they make a choice at the end, or Holt makes a choice at the end with that character that seems so out of sync with the diabolicalness of that character, that attempts to give that character some humanity. And I think, Josh, you and anyone who has seen the movie and has seen the end of the film should know what I'm referring to. And I kind of wanted to laugh watching it, quite frankly.
Yeah, I had a rough time with his characterization, even though I agree the interpretation is as this sadistic guy, but I don't think he got a lot of development beyond that until we're dumped with his villain speech, or a villain speech, I should say, gets dumped on us. Before that, I think Holt was doing a lot of sweating trying to make this work.
Well, the emails are going to come in aplenty.
You have
and
no idea,
we welcome
Adam.
Them.
You have no idea.
Superman is out in wide release. If you see it, and how about we just say, if you agree with us, email us, feedback at filmspotting.net.
You know what?
If you disagree,
our listeners are like Superman. If they disagree with us, they will be kind and they will not want to destroy us and rip our spines out. They'll just have thoughtful, intelligent, kind responses. I'm sure of it.
This conversation might be the one that puts them over the top. This turns them into Lex Luthor.
Oh, no.
Again, feedback at filmspotting.net.
Listening is the number one thing you can do to support an independently produced show like Filmspotting. A couple more things you can do. How about taking a minute to give us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify? You can do this if you're a new listener or if you've been listening for 20 years. Every new review does help us reach new listeners. Another way to support us, join the Filmspotting family at filmspottingfamily.com. We want to thank family member Luka Dukic here in Chicago. I just followed Luka on Letterboxd today. Had a chance to meet him once in Chicago as well. Great guy. If you want to follow Luka on Letterboxd, here's his handle. I'm going to spell it out for you. DEBELICEVAP.
So here's Luka, and I do just want to point out, I've been a little behind this week, Josh. I did not pick this. Well, I never pick them. Sam does, but I haven't even read this until now, and Luka's got some very nice things to say. I was a very early listener of Filmspotting back in 2008. A few years later, I was fortunate to cross paths professionally with one Adam Kempenaar. Adam in person and at work is exactly like he comes across in disembodied voice podcast form. Easy to talk to, intelligent, and thoughtful. Life took me away from movie fandom over the next few years, but last fall, my wife and I had our first child, and I found myself with a lot of new podcast time. given how much time I spent holding/feeding a sleepy child with headphones on at all hours of the night. Rediscovering Filmspotting during this time has inspired me to get back to the movies and has helped me build Letterboxd watch lists to watch all the movies I missed during the past few years. Plus, the calming and dulcet tones of Adam and Josh have helped me get through some very tired first-time parent moments while sitting on the rocking chair in the nursery. Thanks, fellas.
Hang in there, Luca. It'll get better.
Indeed. A favorite review or segment of Luca's, racing to the internet to figure out WTF happened at the end of Take Shelter and finding the best internet explanation coming from Adam. Thank you. Luca,
Man,
what
you're really
review did we get
piling it
wrong?
on now, Luca.
Yeah, I paid him. I seem to be the only person that feels this way, but Hitman was awful. Glen Powell playing dress-up as different characters was fun, but couldn't get past the fact that the least believable character he played in the movie was his actual character. At no point did I buy him as a nerdy, lonely philosophy professor, and the whole pretense of the movie was that he just needs to wear a cool chain and comb his hair differently, and he becomes the suavest man on the planet. New Orleans was also wasted as a setting.
Man,
Luca might be right about that part.
He was doing so good, kissing up
Yeah.
to you, and then had to go against Hitman.
Yeah, now we're done. Letterboxd top 4. Okay, I like this. Well, I like this until the end. Fury Road, Dazed and Confused, Lebowski, and Face Off.
Took a turn there.
Yeah. A favorite movie he revisited recently, 3:10 to Yuma. I'm going to assume that's the Russell Crowe remake, but you never know. A random film or filmmaker he loves. I love Charlie Kaufman's adaptation, especially having read Orchid Thief shortly before. It's the perfect meta movie. A movie he credits with becoming a cinephile. The Coens made me fall in love with movies. Oh Brother and Lebowski were formative movies for me. Inside Llewyn Davis gets better every time I watch it. We're back, baby. Finally, a book about movies or movie making that he appreciates. The Film That Changed My Life. 30 directors on their epiphanies in the dark. So that's a book by Robert Elder, who I interviewed on the show for that book. If you want to check that out in the Filmspotting archive. Thank you so much, Luca, for your support and for your kind words. And we hope to hang out with you again sometime soon. If you would like to become a Filmspotting family member and maybe get featured on the show like Luca, I swear you don't even have to say nice things about us to get featured. Just tell us about your relationship to the show.
It helps.
Again, Sam picked it. Learn more at filmspottingfamily.com.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks, or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Visit USAA.com/bundle.
Bundle savings are off total premium, not available in all states or in all situations. To qualify, auto policy must be active prior to property policy issue, subject to change. Restrictions apply. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
It is a big blockbuster summer, Adam, with Jurassic World Rebirth, a new Superman, but there are other smaller, interesting movies out there as well. I've talked about Ava Victor's directorial debut, Sorry Baby, a dramedy, one of my favorites of the year so far. It's very funny, but also very moving. So yeah, I guess you could call it a dramedy. And then you have Ari Aster's Eddington. Aster, one of those, art film directors still who has a huge following, always making provocative films. So if those are more on your radar, beyond the blockbusters, let's say, you could see those as well at Regal Cinemas. And better yet, you could see Sorry Baby or Eddington for free with Regal Unlimited. This is the all-you-can-watch movie subscription pass that pays for itself in just 2 visits. And right now, Regal is offering Filmspotting listeners endless movies for less. If you sign up for Regal Unlimited using code FilmSpot25, you'll get 10% off a 3-month subscription. Regal Unlimited is the only truly limitless movie subscription pass. You can see any standard 2D movie at any time. They don't have any blackout dates or other restrictions. Also with Regal Unlimited, you're going to save money on snacks. Members get 10% off all non-alcoholic concessions. So sign up now in the Regal app or at the link in the description and use code FilmSpot25 to receive your discount.
Where the deer and the antelope play.
How did we get here? And even worse, is it worth it?
Where seldom
At the cost of being at war with your neighbors?
the discouraging word.
That's why I'm running for mayor.
And the skies are not
Mayor Eddington.
all day.
Thank you, super duper very much.
That's Joaquin Phoenix in the trailer for Eddington, the latest from the director of Hereditary and Midsommar, Ari Aster. His film is set in 2020 in small town New Mexico. Are we ready to go back to 2020, Josh?
Did we ever really leave?
Good question. You are going back. I am conveniently taking a vacation at this time.
A vacation from 2020.
That's right. For a week anyway. And Michael Phillips, the very capable Michael Phillips, will be sitting in my chair and going back to 2020 with you for this conversation about Eddington. We are going to, or the two of you will be revisiting our top 5 Joaquin Phoenix performances. That's a top 5 we did back in 2023, which was a tie-in with the previous Ari Aster Joaquin Phoenix collaboration. Bo Was Afraid. Maybe we can get Michael to chime in with some of his favorite Phoenix performances.
Yeah. Might not force him to do a full list, but I will definitely pick his brain on where he stands with the best of Joaquin Phoenix.
Good. I do want to note, speaking of Michael Phillips, that while we missed you this year, again, sadly, we got to get you back into the fold. I know you've been very busy. We, for the 10th time, Josh, and you were there for the first 8, but for the 10th year, not counting 2020,
That's true.
went to Spring Green, Wisconsin this past weekend to visit the Van Hallgrens, take in some wonderful theater, including Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream at American Players Theater.
Did you get it in? I know you were worried it was going to get rained out.
Michael Phillips came along with us this year, and we hope to make him a regular part of our little troupe venturing up to APT. Josh, for the first time in these 10 years, we had rain, and it rained almost the entire day, and it rained the entire first half of the play.
But they went on.
But it was light enough that they did go on. And we had raincoats and ponchos. And it was a case where at some point in that first act, it got heavy enough that if it continued like that for maybe another 10 or 20 minutes, or certainly if it continued raining through the intermission, they might have had to call it. But right around intermission, it stopped. And in the second act, there was no rain at all. So
nice.
It was not the usual gorgeous atmosphere that you get when we visit APT. So nice seeing outdoor plays there, but it was still a good time, still a wonderful production of that play. The next night we saw a production of Picnic, and that was classic APT, wonderful summer, 75-ish or 70 and sunny with the sun going down, a nice breeze. Michael was there, as I said, and here's the thing about Sam. People who follow the Filmspotting Instagram might have seen this on the Instagram story. You really do just kind of have to keep your wives or significant others away from Sam and his house. And here's what I mean by that.
Well, where's this going?
Here's what I mean by that, Josh. Okay? Because you show up, and of course he's like the perfect host, and he's got dinner prepared. He's like made the brisket and everything.
He was late for our production meeting because he was making the brisket.
That's right. The brisket's prepared. It's delightful. All sorts of other food. And then after dinner, he busts out a homemade peach and pretzel ice cream cake. And he's over there. He's putting the finishing touches on it with this whipped homemade cream, and he's drizzling the peach on top and adding peaches to it. And I don't know, crushed up pecans or something. This thing looks like a work of art. And I don't even like peaches much, and it tasted like a work of art. Now, what I was saying about your significant other, Sarah's over there going, are you watching this, Adam?
Good question.
You watching
yes,
this?
She should. Where is it in her life? Why is this not happening for her?
It's completely absent. And he just sets the bar too damn high all the time. So maybe we have to stop going to Spring Green.
Yeah, I'm sorry we couldn't make it. Maybe next year we'll get back. We'll see. I'm going to see what's on the menu. We'll put it that way. See what Sam has planned for 2026.
I'm sure it will be a delight, whatever it is. Next week, we will also have poll results. The current Deeply Flawed Film Spotting poll asks you to choose one and only one Jack Nicholson performance. We'll share our top 5 Nicholson scenes in a couple of weeks. You can vote in that poll and leave a comment at filmspotting.net. For our schedule of future shows, visit filmspotting.net/episodes.
Adam, Cinema Interruptus is less than a month away. I know we have a good core group who has already signed up for all 4 days. They've committed to the project, Adam, getting through Robert Altman's The Player from beginning to end, which, sounds easy. We are going to watch it in its entirety on day one, but then we'll come back, start at the beginning, and anyone can stop it, make a comment, ask a question until we get to the end. This is all happening at Chicago's Gene Siskel Film Center, August 11 through 14. So join us. Get one of those 4-day packages if you want to commit. But if you can only pop in for a day or two, single-day tickets will also be available. Those are all at siskelfilmcenter.org/interruptus. This week on our sister podcast, The Next Picture Show, looking at cinema's present via its past. They are moving on to part 2 of their Kings of the Road pairing. It is F1, the movie. They'll be comparing this to Adam McKay's Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby, which they discussed on the previous episode. New episodes of The Next Picture Show drop every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes of The Laser Age, Adam, will also be available now. This is from Keith Phipps, one of our Next Picture Show friends. This is it's based on a column he had at the Dissolve, back when the Dissolve was around, exploring science fiction films. The last half of the 20th century is what he's focusing on. I listened to the first episode today on Silent Running, a movie I have not seen but am fascinated by. And he had a guest, John Hodgman, was on, who's, just hilarious and well nerdy enough to have a discussion with Keith about Silent Running. So really enjoyed this first episode of The Laser Age. And we encourage you to check that out.
Silent Running, part of our 70s sci-fi marathon back before you joined the show, Josh.
Sounds like quite a doozy.
Yes, it was.
So check out The Laser Age and listen as well to The Next Picture Show. You can find both wherever you get your podcasts. All right, time now for Massacre Theatre, where we perform a scene and you get a chance to win a Film Spotting prize. Last time we massacred this scene.
Okay, here's the thought. I see an empty stage. I see drums. I see a drummer. I see a microphone. And I see a singer.
Dad, come on.
What?
We gave that stuff up.
Yeah, we don't do that.
Listen to me. Dale, look. When I was a kid, when I was a little boy, I always wanted to be a dinosaur. I wanted to be a Tyrannosaurus Rex more than anything in the world. I made my arms short, and I roamed the backyard, and I chased the neighborhood cats, and I growled, and I roared. Everybody knew me and was afraid of me. And then one day my dad said, Bobby, you're 17. It's time to throw childish things aside. And I said, okay, Pop. But he didn't really say that. He said, stop being a dinosaur and get a job. But I thought to myself, I'll go to medical school, I'll practice for a little while, and then I'll come back to it.
Dad,
how's that a skill?
But I forgot how to do it.
You're human. You could never be a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Hey, I lost it.
Well, Dad, what's the point?
The point is don't lose your dinosaur.
Pretty obvious why we chose that scene from Step Brothers, but let's hear from some listeners about the connections they made. Here's Brian Chudnow from Columbus, Indiana. This was probably the first Massacre Theatre I had guessed well before the first lines were spoken. And as soon as the mention of Josh doing hand gestures was made, I knew that my guess was correct. The movie is, of course, the fantastic 2008 comedy Step Brothers. As far as connections go, I would guess the main one is just the Richard Jenkins speech. Is about acting like a dinosaur, and you reviewed 2 dinosaur movies on the episode. Additionally, you used the names Cal and Bobby to reference the names of Farrell and Riley's characters from Talladega Nights. Probably a better choice than the other Farrell and Riley collaboration, Holmes and Watson. The only other connection that came to mind for me was that Samuel L. Jackson does have a relatively brief but notable role in the Farrell film The Other Guys. One last one. Jeff Goldblum and Farrell have at least collaborated once when Goldblum hosted SNL while Farrell was still a cast member. If you have never seen Farrell and Goldblum's skit with Farrell acting as Harry Carey talking about space, I highly recommend you find the clip on YouTube, as it's worth the watch.
Hi! Let me ask, what's your favorite planet?
Well, I don't have a favorite. I find them all fascinating. They're all part of a...
Mine's the sun!
Wow, how about that? Yeah. Adam, our listeners, they're not just satisfied with the dinosaur connection. Brian went deep.
He went deep, and that Harry Carey clip is absolutely worth the watch. Here's Jake Meltzer in Las Vegas, Nevada. This is the quickest I've known a Massacre Theater in a long time. Shout out to the effing Catalina wine mixer. We got a lot of those. I'm not going to stretch for connections beyond the obvious invocation of the dinosaur, but I will say this. This may not be my favorite comedy of all time, but I don't know if there's a movie that makes me laugh harder every time I watch it.
Fair enough.
Josh, reach in to the Film Spotting hat and pick out this week's winner.
Our winner is John Bond from Haddonfield, New Jersey.
Congratulations, John. Email feedback@filmspotting.net, and we will set you up with your very own Filmspotting t-shirt, or a Filmspotting tote bag, or a trial membership to the Filmspotting family.
Broadsheet journalists have described my impressions as stunningly accurate.
Well, they're wrong. I've not heard your Michael Caine, but I assume it would be something along the lines of, "My name's Michael Caine."
That is where you are so wrong.
We move on now to this week's edition of Massacre Theater, and producer Sam must be a little disappointed with the number of entries because he's made this one, I think, a little obvious, Josh.
Yeah, it's being served right up there on a platter.
At least the tie-in, that's for sure. You started off. I'm going to give you the action. This is going to require some voice work, at least by you. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
And action.
Sup, Soups?
Wow, it's Batman, and he's in my house right now. What are you doing here?
Don't worry about it, dog. Not here to throw down or anything.
No, I would crush you.
Sure. Hey, listen, thank me later, but I just happened to be in the hood, and I figured you could probably use the company. Wait a minute. Are you having the 57th annual Justice League anniversary party without me?
No. There must have been some mistake with the email. That's crazy, man. All right, well, that clears everything up, right? Enjoy the party, bro. Hit it, DJ. Wonder Dog. And scene.
I was just waiting to see how you were going to do that last bit. Congratulations.
Yeah, well, I hope I delivered. If you know what film we just massacred, email the movie's title and your name and location to feedback@filmspotting.net. The deadline is Monday, July 28th. We will select the winner randomly from all the correct entries and announce it in a couple of weeks. Regular listeners, you know we love Soundstripe here at Filmspotting, the perfect library of music and sound effects for content creators. They have over 10,000 high-quality tracks, including music from Grammy-winning artists, and they make music licensing hassle-free with a simple subscription. You get unlimited access to a vast catalog, downloadable stems for creative flexibility, and AI song editing to customize tracks effortlessly, and they have seamless Adobe Premiere Pro integration. That means a smoother editing experience. In addition to AI song editing, they have a new feature, which they're calling Soup. It's your personal AI music supervisor. It's the industry's first interactive AI search assistant that helps creatives find the perfect track faster than ever before. So you're used to this. You look for a song on Soundstripe or some other platform, and you type in the type of music you're looking for or a certain emotion or feeling or tone, and then you got to sit there and go through the tracks and hope you find the right one. Well, this is a chat that allows you with natural language to get refined results on the fly and get the results you want. I tested it out with a series that I was working on with one of my classes. We were doing a podcast series about the college protests that happened at the University of Iowa campus and other campuses around the country in the wake of the Kent State killings. And I typed in, we need music for an audio podcast about these college campus protests in the early 70s. Soup asks, should the music evoke genuine period instruments and style, convey more contemporary dramatization, or mix both influences? I said authentic 70s style with relevant instruments. Soup said, got it. Let's focus on crafting an authentic 70s sound. For your podcast, would you prefer a folk-infused acoustic vibe, a rock band energy, or soulful atmospheric tracks? I said folk-infused acoustic vibe and was able to find exactly the kind of tracks I was looking for. If that sounds like the kind of platform and the kind of service you're looking for, all powered by Soundstripe's catalog of 50,000 plus tracks by real artists, and these are tracks for any platform, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, TV, film, and more, you can get it now from Soundstripe using our promotion code. That's code Filmspotting10 to save 10% off now. Just go to soundstripe.com/filmspotting and use code Filmspotting10.
Who am I?
Your name is Kal-El. You are the only survivor of the planet Krypton. Even though you've been raised as a human being, you are not one of them. You have great powers, only some of which you have as yet discovered.
That's Marlon Brando's Jor-El, father of Kal-El, in 1978 Superman: the movie, a heartfelt scene that James Gunn offers a little twist on. In his film, we are sharing our top 5 Superman movie moments, and this is a little twist on a top 5 we've already done. Way back on episode 579, I had on a couple of guests, Chris Klimek and Glen Weldon from Pop Culture Happy Hour. And if you'd like to hear them talk about this Superman 2025, James Gunn's, and have way more positive things to say, as I understand, Josh, they are on Pop Culture Happy Hour reviewing the film with Linda Holmes, and you can get that wherever you get your podcasts. They shared their favorite Batman Superman moment. So it was a combination. Some Batman scenes, some Superman scenes. We're devoting this top 5 entirely to Superman. Now, you weren't there for that list. That's why I had on Chris and Glenn. So we're going to get your favorite Superman moments. And I got to expand on my list. I decided to set aside the 2 Superman scenes. It's kind of crazy, actually, that I picked 3 Batman moments, considering I'm more of a Superman kind of kid. But I put those 2 in the honorable mentions, found 5 more that I'm a big fan of, and let's jump in.
Yeah, I don't know if I was a Superman kid. I was a Superman young kid because, as you said up top, 78 and then 80 for Superman 2. Probably 80 is right when I was really into these sorts of movies. And so liked Superman then, but quickly, I think in my head, outgrew him. So by the time, middle school or so came around and it was Tim Burton's Batman, I was like totally all in on Batman. But then years later came back around to Superman and appreciating once more what they pulled off with the 78 version. All that's to say, Adam, I really don't know much Superman beyond those 2 Christopher Reeve films. And the recent ones, which I haven't really enjoyed much at all. So I did some research for this list. I wanted to learn more about the Superman that came before my time and see, just see what pops up as essential about this character over the decades. So going all the way back, being somewhat familiar with the original 38 comic, but then animated versions that came shortly thereafter. And yes, even the George Reeves TV series. So let's start with Reeves. Can I start with George Reeves here at number 5?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the interesting thing, didn't realize this. I knew about the TV series, but there was a feature film that was used to promote that, to kick it off. And it was called Superman and the Mole Men. This is 1951. Now, I hear a title like that. Speaking my language, right? I mean, come on. I was like, I'm watching this thing. I got to watch this thing. It helps that it's 58 minutes. But yeah, the manimal quotient, the manimal material wasn't great, Adam. These mole men, they basically have bald caps. You can see they put a little fur on their hands. That's about it. That's about all you get. That was not a highlight. Overall, this was a little rough. It's stiff. It's very slow. But George Reeves gets a couple of great scenes that are particularly interesting, given all the right-wing hand-wringing that's going on about this new Superman.
Mm-hmm.
The basic plot here involves a deep earth oil drill that breaks into the realm of the mole men, okay? Now, a few of these mole men come out of the hole to investigate what's going on, and the townsfolk go nuts. They're paranoid. They're trigger happy. They turn into a lynch mob. And you've got Superman here, George Reeves Superman, trying to keep the peace. So here he is when the armed mob shows up at the hospital where one of the wounded mole men is being treated for a gunshot.
You're going to step aside or we have to make trouble.
Put some lead in him, Luke.
Mr. Benson tried that once already. It didn't work. Now I'm going to give you one last chance to stop acting like Nazi stormtroopers.
Who are you to tell us what to do?
All I'm telling you is that little creature in there has as much right to live as you do. Don't forget, you invaded his world. You sank a pipe 6 miles into the ground. And when he climbed up, you set dogs on him, shot him.
So I've got to credit Amy Nicholson, LA Times film critic, because she was posting about Superman and the Mole Men on Blue Sky. This is what alerted me to it. And regarding that clip in particular, she said this: had to mention this scene in my Superman review because it's still startling in 2025. A rural mob wants to lynch the outsider mole men. Superman confiscates their guns and calls them Nazis. So, you know what, Adam? Maybe we should make America great again, okay? We are a long way from the sort of level-headed, communal common sense that Superman displayed here in 1951. So I think we should do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't advise watching Superman and the Mole Men in whole, but you can find that scene in our show notes. And I did choose it because I think it does speak to an essential quality, the pacifist nature of Superman that not every iteration has quite gotten right. This one did.
Okay. I did not dig into any George Reeves or other TV Supermen. Unlike you, though, I have seen and have to admit, as a kid, I quite liked Superman 3 with Richard Pryor. And
Okay.
I even liked for a spell Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. But no, I will not be picking any great Superman moments from either of those installments, nor will I be picking any great moments from Batman v Superman or Justice League. That doesn't mean Zack Snyder may not appear anywhere on my list. Josh, he's not coming in at number 5, though. My number 5 is from Superman 2, and it's the diner revenge scene.
Oh yeah.
Now keep in mind, I am
this
watching
as a
this
kid.
movie. That's it. I'm watching this movie as a grade schooler.
Uh-huh.
And it's so satisfying, right? It's satisfying now, but especially satisfying then. It's set up by one of the worst Superman moments to watch, right? Clark Kent, absent his Superman powers, trying to defend his wife's honor at a diner, and he's just beaten senseless by this vulgar trucker. I said in our Superman 2025 review that this Superman was perfect. Well, I actually don't think Corn Sweat's Superman would do this, would come back at the end of the film to get revenge. He wouldn't believe in revenge.
Yeah, it
right?
kind of goes against
it does
the ethos of the Reeves Superman. It's an interesting scene.
Yeah, but Henry Cavill's Superman does something like this, and certainly Christopher Reeves wasn't above this. His Superman wasn't above this because he gets his revenge here. He comes back to the diner after regaining his powers and finds this trucker.
Excuse me, sir. I think you're sitting in my favorite seat.
Well, come and get it for us.
Donner's just so good with the camera. The way, once he gets the trucker's attention, he starts to walk, and just as he starts to walk, the camera starts to pull back, track backwards as he walks, which builds a little tension as he moves forward. And here's the thing about being a kid. the whole sequence is a bit cartoonish, right? He takes the trucker and he spins him like 1,000 miles an hour on the seat. Then he slides him down the counter. And what does he say?
This order's to go.
And when everyone looks at him like, wait a second, aren't you the loser that he beat up? How do you explain this? He says,
Well, I've been working out.
And the guy's face after he gets slid down the counter and he ends up in the pinball machine and he makes that face, like his eyes are rolling back.
Yeah,
in his
like
head.
a Looney Tunes. Yeah.
Looney Tunes. There's some kind of bird in the pinball machine that's then like pecking him, right? This cuckoo like effect. It's just what we all dream of, especially as a little kind of powerless kid, being the boy or being the man who stands up and takes down the bad guy. You want to be the guy who does it the first time, but if for some reason you can't be that guy, you get to come back and even the score. And as the kid rooting for Superman, you don't want Superman to lose ever. Whether he's Superman or Clark Kent, you don't want him to lose. And getting that revenge, watching that scene, you were kind of waiting the whole movie for it to happen.
That's the word you use, satisfying. It was just so satisfying in the moment. And now that I'm thinking, probably right around the time I saw this might have been when I was dealing with the neighborhood bully who waited for me between the bus stop and the house, I think a lot of people have had that kid in their life. And maybe this is just about then when I saw this scene and I just loved it so much. I had my own Superman, an older kid in the neighborhood who would, be on the bus too, and he would walk with me sometimes.
Okay.
But yeah, if he wasn't there, I had to run pretty quick.
All right, you had a bodyguard instead of gaining your own powers.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right, so for my number 4, let's get to the gold standard, 1978 Superman with Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder. And my pick here is Faster Than a Speeding Bullet. This is a relatively early scene. And like my number 5 pick from Mole Men, it presents a decidedly pacifist version of the hero, especially when it comes to guns, actually. So this is Lois and Clark Kent getting held up at gunpoint by a mugger. Clark tries to be reasonable at first.
Just a minute, mister. Just a minute. Now, I realize, of course, that times are tough for some these days, but this isn't the answer. You can't solve society's problems with a gun.
You know something, buddy? You're right. I'm going to turn over a new leaf.
Good for you, sir. That's the spirit. See, he doesn't really want to hurt anybody.
Right after I rip off this lady's purse.
Of course.
Now, come on, lady. Hand it over.
But Lois gets feisty.
Lois, what are you doing?
The mugger shoots, and Clark catches the bullet. Then the aftermath of this is where it gets really good from a character standpoint, because Clark has to downplay the heroism of Superman that he just displayed and lean into the wimpiness of his alter ego.
I guess I must have fainted.
Fainted? You fainted.
Sorry.
I love in the Reeve films when we get a little moment when Superman peeks out from behind Clark's glasses. And you won't be able to hear that here, but you can see it in the clip. This is when he drops the charade just to himself here. We get a quick touch of it when Lois walks away and we see Clark look down at the bullet in his hand and just allows himself a little grin of satisfaction. So many scenes you could pick to show why Reeve was so brilliant in this part. And this is one of them that I had to include, Faster Than a Speeding Bullet.
It's really good. And speaking of Lois being feisty, in that first diner scene, after he's beaten the hell out of Clark, Lois like jumps on his back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she does.
She's just
full on attack.
Yeah, she is not going down without a fight, which is why we love Margot Kidder's Lois Lane. My number 4 is where I'm going to give Zack Snyder's Man of Steel a little love. I don't think there's much right about any of the Zack Snyder Supermans, but I am choosing the pretty famous and rightfully so first flight scene. Because if you think about at least all the Supermans I can recall, we have never before witnessed Superman figuring out how to fly. Superman failing at flying.
This is the great Spider-Man sequence usually.
Right,
This
exactly.
is Peter Parker with the webs. Yeah.
Yes, bouncing off the ground repeatedly and other parts of the landscape. And the way Snyder then, once he does kind of finally get really airborne, he keeps the camera on his face for a little bit of time. It's not manic editing. And you see Cavill really gritting his teeth. You see that Superman's really struggling to stay in the air as he is pushing upward. And it's as if he's having to will himself forward, which is something we don't think about with Superman. We do see him in Superman 2025 and in other films. We see that he can be quite aggressive as a flyer. That's actually something I like in this film. I like watching in the new one when Corn Sweat really, does take off like a bullet. But here he really has to work at it. And there is a moment then when he finally feels like he's got the hang of it and he thrusts forward and laughs. And of course, the moment he gets cocky, that's when he crashes down into a mountain. But then he pauses, the movie pauses. He's got a little of that voiceover in his head from his father.
Why am I so different from them? Earth's sun is younger and brighter than Krypton's was. Your cells have drunk in its radiation, strengthening your muscles, your skin, your senses. Earth's gravity is weaker, yet its atmosphere is more nourishing. You've grown stronger here than I ever could have imagined. The only way to know how strong is to keep testing your limits.
He collects himself and he feels that sun that empowers him. And that's when, like a rocket ship, he takes off. And you watch him speeding across all those different terrains and then finally into space. And it's really, I don't know if we say this often about Zack Snyder films, but it's a very elegantly cut together sequence with a great score by Hans Zimmer accompanying it. And from an action point of view, even though it's just Superman, it's a genuinely thrilling scene.
All right. Man of Steel getting some attention. I might have an honorable mention from Man of Steel we'll get to in just a little bit. But at number 3, I'm going in a different direction because, I was familiarizing myself with more Superman for this list. I did ask the folks who've subscribed to my Larson on Film email newsletter for their Superman picks. And so I want to thank Ben Page for reminding me of the series of theatrical animated shorts that Fleischer Studios made in the early 1940s. Now, these are all on YouTube. I think they're about like 8 minutes each. So I went into a bit of a rabbit hole watching a bunch of these. They look great. I mean, you've got vibrant Technicolor. The imagery is very Art Deco influenced, even though it's, a little time after that period. Sharp sound design. It's almost like these were, you could tell this was the age of radio too, because the sound effects and the sound design is very sophisticated. Now, rather than just one scene from the ones that I watched, my pick is actually going to be the opening introductory narration for each short. It's repeated each time because it really cemented the Superman character as we'd come to know him. The basics.
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. The infant of Krypton is now the Man of Steel, Superman.
So yeah, these Fleischer shorts were fascinating little time capsules. I would absolutely encourage listeners to check one or two out if you haven't seen them before. They're quite good.
Wow, you're just showing off now. All the homework
fun.
You did, the
Adam,
deep cuts.
It was so much fun. And 8 minutes for these, 58 minutes for Mole Men. Come on, I could fit that in.
All right, my number 3. I think it's possible that I have never, maybe someone who's been through the archives a couple times, and there are crazy listeners who've done that. I mean that in the most positive way. Maybe they can recall whether or not I've ever brought this up before. I don't think I have brought up this scene, even though it is honestly, Josh, one of the scenes in movie history that looms the largest in my imagination, in my memory. It's from Superman the movie. And it's the death of Pa Kent, Glen Ford, near the beginning of the film, when a teenage Clark Kent has come home and he's getting some fatherly advice.
When you first came to us, we thought that people would come and take you away because when they found out, the things you could do, and it worried us a lot. But then a man gets older and he thinks very differently and things get very clear. And there's one thing I do know, son, and that is you are here for a reason. I don't know whose reason, whatever the reason is, maybe it's because, I don't know, but I do know one thing, it's not to score touchdowns. Huh?
Yeah. Thanks, Dad.
Wonderful portrayal of Pa Kent by Glen Ford, this Hollywood
How
icon.
about that?
Who just brings all the gravitas that you need that role to bring and just instantly gives you a sense of compassion and love for his son. And as they walk up the driveway, he gives him some advice, and then Superman runs off with his dog into the garage. And as Pa Kent heads up the driveway, we see him clutch his left arm, and he's having a heart attack. He's having those early signs of a heart attack, and he collapses. Everything about this whole sequence, the heart attack itself, the next few moments, the discovery, Ma Kent seeing that he's down on the ground, and some of the other shots, and then into the funeral, which is how the movie transitions. These are the moments, Josh, the use of the camera here and Donner's staging of it, that when you rewatch it, it just supports any case for this movie as still and maybe always the definitive Superman movie. The scale of it, the authenticity of it, he's using a lot of deep focus, so you really get these rich landscapes. I don't know if it was actually shot in Kansas or not, but it certainly feels like it was. And the moment, Josh, for example, when Ma Kent yells, Jonathan, when she sees him down on the ground, and it cuts to Clark in the garage with the dog, it's this silhouetted moment where they are in front of the doorway of the barn, and you see the light coming through the barn, and they're in shadow. And it's almost like one of those John Wayne and the Searchers like shots. It feels mythic, that shot does. And something about that moment, again, I'm watching this as a very young kid, and I'll say, my dad had a heart attack. His dad had a heart attack. And I don't know that I ever got the whole story, now that I think about it, about how it happened. But as a kid, hearing the story of my grandfather, who I never met, he died before I was born, hearing the story of how he had a heart attack, whatever I heard, because I didn't get a lot of details, I filled in the blanks.
Sure.
With Superman the movie. I envisioned my grandfather, again, who I never met, going down, like clutching his arm. And surely he was outside his house, like in the driveway. And he went down exactly like Glen Ford does in this film. That's how I envisioned it. How else could it be? So this scene, as I said, has always been one that's been kind of important to me. It wasn't until later that I realized that my version of a heart attack, or what I imagined that looked like, a man, a 50, 60, 70-year-old man having a heart attack, what that looked like was something that was just fictional, was out of a movie. And like I said, when it goes to the cemetery, when it then goes to the funeral, it's this wonderful dissolve. And then it starts on a pan with the camera panning left. And here again, the shots, the compositions, as you see Clark and his mother standing sort of in the side of the frame, and another couple in the other corner. It's just so beautifully rendered. And the line too. Talk about the emotion of this scene, emotion that I surely never felt, unfortunately, watching Superman 2025. The line Clark says to his mother, all those powers, and I couldn't even save him.
Yeah, Donner manages just some incredible imagery in a movie that I think at first memory, we just think of as a lot of bright reds and blues, but it's much more than that. And as far as Pa Kent's go, and a little more Man of Steel praise here, Kevin Costner really good in that role in Man of Steel. Maybe for me, one of the highlights there. So, all right. So we are at our number 2 picks, and this is where I'm going to go to Superman 2. My childhood Superman movie, as we were saying, probably too young to have seen the first film in theaters. Pretty sure I saw this one in theaters and certainly rewatched this over and over again when I was, I don't know, maybe 10 or so. I mean, watching clips today, preparing for this list, so deeply nostalgic. I realize, oh my goodness, I just put these on repeat when I was a kid. One of them that I loved and I'm picking here, I definitely remember being giddy over the soap opera drama of the moment in Superman 2 when Margot Kidder's Lois finally forces Christopher Reeve as Clark to admit that he's Superman.
You are Superman.
Oh, Lois, come on, don't be...
Part of the magic in this scene is the slow transition Reeve makes from Clark to Superman. And it's like 1 step Superman, 2 steps back to Clark. We've got his flustered denial you can hear. That's his instinct. That's all Clark, right? But then what follows it almost a half second later, a soft punch of the pillow. That's Superman. Then he walks away from her, turns his back to her. That's Clark. And then he commits, turns around, not only takes off his glasses, but if you watch this scene, watch how he changes his posture. His whole body morphs when he decides he's going to drop the charade.
I don't know why I did that.
Maybe you wanted to.
I don't think I did.
Well, maybe you didn't want to with your mind, but maybe you wanted to with your heart.
Just a note here on the John Williams score, which applies pretty much to both Superman and Superman 2. It's often remembered for its triumphant blasts, which are a lot of fun. But the real genius in watching a lot of these scenes is how it's employed in the softer moments. So you barely notice it in the background. It's a variation on the same theme, but it's there quietly, softly, almost as if the score is gently holding the movie in its hands. And this is what happens in this wonderful scene. You are Superman from Superman 2, which is where I'm going with my number 2.
It's not only that his entire posture changes, which it does. You watch that scene and you see how, as he turns, he fills his entire chest, his lungs with air.
Yeah.
And it could be a case that was Reeve showing Superman. It's almost the opposite of a sigh, where he's finally like, okay, I'm accepting that I'm finally going to do this. And he's kind of mustering the courage. But it also seems like it's just that in keeping with that idea of his posture and assuming the role of Superman, it is if he's broadening his entire chest.
Yeah, he's living into who he really is.
That's right.
In that moment, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned the score because that's another element, of course, of that Death of Pa Kent scene is the way the John Williams score just subtly turns and becomes more sorrowful there when Jonathan starts to feel those symptoms, the signs of the heart attack. My number 2 is also from Superman 2, and I'm going to call this another very satisfying scene. It is the end of Superman 2. It is the climactic ending, anyway. It is defeating Zod. At the Fortress of Solitude, the entire sequence where we see Superman turn the table, deceive General Zod,
so fun,
and his 2 minions, and take away their power. And what I love about it, there's 2 things I really love about it. Well, there's 3. One is just, again, you're watching that, and Superman, Reeve as Superman, tricks you as an audience member, at least as a kid, certainly. And you believe that they've beat him. You believe, even though it's a Superman movie, that they're taking his powers away. You don't notice that the color has changed outside the room and that he's really tricked them and taken their powers away. You're sure that he's lost. He can't beat them. And it's over. Just like Lois Lane in that scene, who's covering her eyes. She can't even watch as it's happening, right? And you're heartbroken. And so then we get the twist, and we love that. But beyond that, it really is just a masterclass of Reeve from an acting standpoint. The fun he's having, the little devious fun he's having with Hackman, who's also having such devious fun, like the way he tricks him.
Try to get them all into this molecule chamber. It takes away their powers, see? And turns them into ordinary human beings. Now, if you could...
Don't go in there, General. It's a trap.
Luther, you poisonous snake!
That's a molecule chamber. It makes people like you into people like me.
You can't believe for a second that Superman seems to trust him. Of course, all part of the ruse.
Take my hand and swear eternal loyalty to Zod.
I said there were 2 or 3 things I loved about it. There's so many more. The way he crushes his hand. The way Hackman points out what really happened.
He switched it. He did it to them. I mean, the lights were on out here, while he was safe in there.
And then, of course,
Hey, you know something?
Lois Lane puts it all together.
You're a real pain in the neck.
Gives her the fist to the face. Ursa, is that her name?
Sounds right, yeah.
And just so many great moments there defeating Zod.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember now, again, having rewatched it so many times, like, was I onto the plan? You know, because when you talked about the lights,
I definitely wasn't.
Like the lights switching, that's such like a great clue to give to kids in the audience too, right?
Yeah.
And you do wonder, as Donner and collaborators were thinking about who they're making this movie for, right? Because it works on both levels. It obviously worked for us at a young age, but I think, you know, it works for adults too. So yeah, that's a great pick. All right. Number 1, no-brainer. No-brainer number 1 for me. One of those that as soon as we talked about this, I knew it was going to be there. The helicopter rescue from 1978 Superman. Yeah. And I'm picking officially the whole sequence here, but honestly, it could just be that delightful, quippy exchange mid-rescue between Superman and Lois.
Easy, miss. I've got you.
You've got me. Who's got you?
As a Superman sequence, though, this really has it all. First, you get the phone booth gag. It's not a booth. He runs up to the phone, but it's like an open phone stand. So he doesn't know where to go. He's got to do that speed change in the revolving door. Again, like as a kid, something that's funny, but also how cool. Look how fast the door is going. We were easily entertained as kids, Adam. But you get such clean, clear effects work throughout this sequence that is paired with practical stunts, clearly rooted in the real world. That is a helicopter, you know, we can touch these things. And I think that, you know, there's probably a fair amount of rear projection, but whatever combination, it all looks really good. And yeah, as we touched on, it's better than just about anything in the new 2025 Superman in terms of effects. All of this to the point you've been making about Richard Donner as director, just economically staged, smartly staged, composed in a way that isn't calling attention to itself, but is rather letting the excitement emerge on its own. There's something that a filmmaker who's not pushing the pedal down too hard, but knows how to push the pedal, that's what you see Donner doing. And there's a distinction there that can be overlooked. And maybe some people can dismiss Superman as not being, you know, quite as flashy or as exciting. But in a sequence like this, it's all there. Everything you need is there.
Yeah.
And here's the main thing. This scene is all about rescue. And doing this list, watching all sorts of Superman, that's the heart of the character for me. That's what people will say, duh. But again, not a Superman guy. that's what I realized is Superman exists not to defeat, not to conquer, not to bludgeon, simply to save and rescue. And it's interesting because that's a very simple concept that can be difficult to sustain. I do think maybe that's why his sequels peter out. Maybe it's why we don't need other variations beyond Donner's. This is a simple idea. This is a guy who's here to save and rescue. Audiences have not been content with that. We crave more conflict. We crave more villains. I mean, we got to a point where it was Superman v. Batman. Nobody needed that. That has nothing to do with Superman. At his best, Superman's he's just a hero scooping up a helicopter, falling from the sky. It's all we get here, and it's more than enough. I wasn't alone in this pick. 2 other subscribers to that Larson on Film newsletter singled it out, so I just want to give them a little time here. Ed Redmond said, it just set the tone for what a fun movie it was going to be and how Christopher Reeve brought his charm and enthusiasm to the role. And then Jeremy Kennis, when it's capped off with the score as he catches the helicopter, it's perfect. So yeah, for me, maybe the perfect Superman moment, it's at my number 1, the helicopter rescue.
You know who else was smart enough to have it at number 1, Josh? Me, back on episode 579.
Seriously? All right. But not now? Come on, you can bring it back.
No, I thought about it. Believe me, especially as I was rushing to prepare. I thought, hey, joint number 1. I'll just look for my notes from last time and repeat myself. But I thought, no, you know what? There are so many good scenes from the Superman movies, but especially just from Superman the movie, that I don't need to repeat myself.
All right,
and
fair enough.
I decided to go with a different scene from Superman the movie involving Superman and Lois. And I had one first flight scene here in this top 5. Of course, my number 4 from Man of Steel. I'm going at number 1 for this list with the first flight that Lois and Superman have.
Yeah, that's great.
Culminates the interview scene that they have.
Ready?
Clark said that you're just a figment of somebody's imagination. Like Peter Pan.
Lark, who's that, your boyfriend?
Clark? Oh, Clark. No, he's nothing. He's just a...
Peter Pan, huh?
Uh-huh.
Peter Pan flew with children, Lois. In a fairy tale.
This is another great example of the John Williams score doing a lot of the heavy lifting, right? It's so good, this flying sequence, the music, that's what it's called on the soundtrack. And what has to work here, Josh, and it's just a very small thing, but with the filmmaking, as Superman starts to lift her off the ground, the shot is he's talking to her, and it's a 2-shot in medium close-up. And he's been talking to her in that 2-shot for something like 20 or 30 seconds, I think, as I'm kind of scanning through it. They are held in that shot, and then I think they walk into it. And so they're in close-up, and they're talking to each other, and then they start to lift off. And at the beginning of the shot, rather than when they start to fly, they've already cut to the wide shot, they start to take off in that close-up. So we feel like, oh, this is real. You know, Superman's starting to fly already as they're in that shot, even though it was probably more practical for him to start moving right in that close-up because he's not really needing to lift off the ground necessarily. It feels to us like he's starting to fly. Then we get the wide shot where he does come off that balcony, and the wire work or whatever effects they're using there, Josh, is just so seamless.
Yeah.
You know, there's
really
no projection there or anything, and we have to believe it. We have to think in that moment that he really has somehow just lifted off that balcony with her, and we do. Now, as they fly through the sky here in complete opposition to the scene, very different scene, obviously, but a very different type of editing and overall kind of staging this compared to the Man of Steel scene. This is all about the romance and their bonding in this moment. And it is so elegant and graceful. And what I really appreciate about it the most, Josh, even though it still has that awe to it, because you see them fly around the Statue of Liberty and around all the skyscrapers at night, right? It does have that, especially if you were watching it on a big screen. You get a little bit of the spectacle. But it goes back to something we were talking about in relation to that great scene in Jurassic Park where they first see the dinosaurs. Watch this scene and notice how much of the time is spent not looking at long shots of them flying and the surroundings, their environment. How much of it is spent on their faces?
Mm-hmm.
It is all about the experience that they're having together, but especially the experience that Lois Lane is having in the air with Superman. And I don't really want to undersell it. Like, how many different variations, credit to Margot Kidder, how many variations on first fear can you come up with as an actress? She has to come up with quite a few. And then that sense of wonder, that sense of awe that she has, we see a lot of variations from her, and they all work in this 3-minute-ish sequence. It is all about her experience and the experience we're having through her as she flies through the sky with him.
Thus concludes our top 5 Margot Kidder scenes.
Yes.
She's so great.
There you have it. Those are our top 5 Margot Kidder and Superman moments. Josh, do you have any honorable mentions?
Yeah, I mentioned the Man of Steel pick here, and it doesn't actually come from me, but I want to give Man of Steel a little more credit here, the Zack Snyder film from 2013. This is from reader Jeff Van Vickel, who talks about the moment where Superman is surrendering to the authorities, Henry Cavill's Superman. He basically restrains his own powers. Jeff wrote, "He does a little thing with his eyebrows that shows vulnerability. The best Superman moments are the ones that highlight his humanity, and in a movie otherwise painting him as an emotionless hunk, this brief exchange gives us a tiny glimpse into what Cavill could have done with the character had he been given the opportunity. For a few moments, visually desaturated though the image may be, Superman is warm, quiet, and kind, sacrificing his ego and comfort for the sake of others. That's what I want to see out of this particular man in tights." So yeah, thank you, Jeff, for that. And then an honorable mention of my own, maybe the scene, Adam, that gripped me the most from Superman 2 is the Niagara Falls rescue.
Yeah.
I watched it again today, and it's not really all that great of a sequence, but as a kid, and being a kid who was always just tempted to hang on the wrong side of a railing over a precipice, the thought crossed my mind, to see that boy do it, fall, and Superman rescue him. That one stuck with me.
So obviously my number one from last time, the helicopter rescue, your number one, honorable mention this time. The other Superman scene I had on that list, I'll throw in as an honorable mention from Man of Steel. Actually, it's, I think, a flashback that Superman is having where he's in a classroom as a young boy, like in grade school. The scene is called, or when you find it online, "The World's Too Big." He's talking to his mom and he's saying the world's too big. He can't handle all the noise because, of course, he experiences everything. He feels everything on a level that normal kids don't feel and experience. And I really like that scene. And you mentioned Kevin Costner. I did find a Reddit. I didn't read it, but I did see a Reddit thread as I was Googling something where there are some people, shocking, there's some people out there who I guess hate this scene, or at least hate the whole plot line or this moment itself, the decision to have this character go out this way. But Jonathan's sacrifice, Kevin Costner's Pa Kent, that scene, I actually really like that whole scene and that moment, the decision he makes for his son, as misguided, of course, as it is, and as it maybe even seems in the moment, I believe that character believes it's the only thing he can do.
Yeah, Costner's good.
Yeah, he's really good. Chris's number one from last time, I'll mention here, especially as it's the lead up to my number one from this time, the interview with Superman. And I know we're not supposed to talk about Bryan Singer at all. And I don't really want to talk about Superman Returns because I didn't like the movie much at all. But Chris and Glenn, Superman aficionados, did have multiple picks from Superman Returns. And the scene where Superman saves the airplane is pretty exciting when I rewatched it today.
It's closer in spirit, I think, actually, to 78 Superman than in a lot of ways this latest version is. So it's that one's a curiosity for sure.
Again, those are our top 5 Superman movie moments. You can find those choices and links to watch those scenes at filmspotting.net/lists. We would love to hear your thoughts, your picks, and any other thoughts about the show. You can email feedback@filmspotting.net. Josh, that is our show.
You can connect with Adam and the show on Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd at Filmspotting. I'm at those places, as well as Blue Sky as Larson on Film. We are independently produced and listener supported. You can support the show by joining the Filmspotting family at filmspottingfamily.com. You can listen early and ad-free, get a weekly newsletter, monthly bonus episodes, and access to the entire show archive. If you want show t-shirts or other merch, go to filmspotting.net/shop.
In that Filmspotting archive, you can find the show we've mentioned multiple times with Chris Klimek and Glen Weldon. We reviewed Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. You can probably skip that part. Go right to the Batman Superman movie moments. We actually dropped that in our podcast feed earlier this week. That's episode 579. Man of Steel was reviewed on episode 450, and Superman Returns was reviewed way back on episode 112 with Sam Van Hallgren. Big fan of that film. In limited release, you can see Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight. This is actress Embeth Davidtz making her directing debut with an adaptation of Alexander Fuller's memoir about growing up during the Zimbabwean War for Independence. You can also see To a Land Unknown. This is about Palestinian refugees trying to score fake passports to get out of Athens. Our friend Isaac Feldberg says, crafted with the same flavor of rough, vivid street poetry that flowed through Ramin Barani's Chop Shop and its forefather, Vittorio De Sica's Bicycle Thieves. That's some heady company, Josh. In wide release, I Know What You Did Last Summer. We're just reheating it, recycling it. What
Why not?
What re-term do you want to use? The 97 film with the same name.
Yeah, just is reheat. Reheat covers it all.
Smurfs. Is this another reheat?
There's a note here that Smurfs sing. So
they're singing this time.
Did they not sing before?
I don't know.
Didn't they sing in the cartoon you and I grew up on alongside
they did.
Superman? They always sang.
Yeah.
This is nothing new, kids.
And Eddington. Sheriff Joaquin Phoenix and Mayor Pedro Pascal come to blows in small town New Mexico in the latest from Ari Aster. I somehow lucked out and got out of duty on this one, review duty.
Wow, the pre-Eddington disinterest.
Yeah, well, I am not a big Ari Aster guy. And
this is true.
We have already commented on how going back to 2020 does seem a little dispiriting at the moment, but you will be making that trip along with the Chicago Tribune's Michael Phillips. Will also share our top 5 Joaquin Phoenix performances. There may be a couple of other quick reviews thrown in there as well.
Filmspotting is produced by Golden Joe Dassault and Sam Van Hallgren. Without Sam and Golden Joe, this show wouldn't go. Our production assistant is Sophie Kempenaar. Special thanks to everyone at WBEZ Chicago. More information is available at WBEZ.org. For Filmspotting, I'm Josh Larson.
And I'm Adam Kempenaar. Thanks for listening.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
Filmspotting is listener supported. Join the Filmspotting family at filmspottingfamily.com and get access to ad-free episodes, monthly bonus shows, our weekly newsletter, and for the first time, all in one place, the entire Filmspotting archive going back to 2005. That's at filmspottingfamily.com.